Hello, career thought leaders. It's good to see you today. And we are going to be talking about how we help people understand the difference between expert and authority. So we might have a ton of experience. Our client might be an executive with 20 years of experience. But if our online presence doesn't just reflect that experience, but the value that it can add, we're not an authority, we're an expert. And what's the difference, and how do we help our clients understand that and then adjust their profile, their messaging, their engagement to really make the transition? So we're going to walk through a 3-step audit, a simple shift of our brand from kind of a passive resume to that opportunity attracting magnet. So as you're joining us here today, I'd love to hear it in the chat, scale of 1 to 5, right? How confident are you that your brand is attracting the opportunities you want? And if you don't want to answer for yourself, you might think about a client and you say, this client I'm working with, they're really at a 2 right now, Marie. How could I get them to a 5? So I'd love to hear that from you. So we come here every Tuesday to talk about the now, the new, and the next in careers. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a hello in the chat, even if you don't want to share how confident you are in your brand. And we are going to be doing a open call. So we do an open call every month. Our open call for this month is going to be on brand trends, digital branding trends. Surprise, surprise, right? So if you're interested in joining us, that's tomorrow, actually at the same time. And it's always at the CTL RWA Logistics QA RSVP, because it's a time for you to ask questions about topics, about our programs. But we also are going to talk about some digital branding trends, what's going on in the space, especially with the search everywhere optimization, right? As we know, AI search results and those types of things may impact our clients a little bit differently than us. But, how do we help them have that in mind as they're doing their own profiles, their engagement, all of that? So, thank you for sharing, Terry. I love it. This is why we're here, is to work together and help each other be more confident and get the tools that we can help our clients be more confident as well. So you can join us there. Every month we have one of these open calls, and the topic rotates depending on what we're talking about at the moment. So let's talk a little bit about how we help our clients and ourselves think about our profile a little bit differently. So we know that we need to be keyword optimized, right? And that might not be that easy for our clients. It may not be that easy for us to do the research and really understand the keywords that we need to have in our profiles. But it isn't rocket science. There are sites we can go to if we're working with a job seeker. They can go to the job descriptions they're targeting. We can use AI tools to analyze those job descriptions or analyze our market and our competitors if we're in small business, and really think about, what do I want to be found for? And then find the keywords. The challenge isn't the keywords. The challenge is, what do I want to be known for? And this is where most people really struggle. And it's the first shift that we're going to talk about in your profile, in your content, in your branding, is to think about, what do you want to be known for? And not just what do I do, but what problems do I solve, or what value do I bring to that audience? So most people stop at, the keyword optimization, get those keywords in there. This is what I do. These are the skills that I have. Great, let's list them in a list. That may help your profile show up in search results, but that's going to be the end of it. It's not going to be magnetic. It's not going to be attractive. It's not going to be authority and get you opportunities. It's going to be commodity, expert. You sound like everybody else, because guess what? Everybody else can do that same keyword research. So how do we make that transition? So let's think about, and we'll just use an example of one of our colleagues, right? Executive coach and consultant. That keyword may help you show up, executive coach, but there are thousands of them. And how are you going to stand out? So bringing that value-based language into it, and you may even lead with executive coach, but I would encourage us to have that title clean and concise at the beginning, then move into some kind of value statement. And I'm going to give you an example, but this is actually another great use of ChatGPT or Gemini. Please don't use LinkedIn's built-in system for this. But you can go and say, okay, give me five different formulas for a headline that lead with the title, what I want to be known for in the clear keywords, and then has some variation of a value statement, a branding tagline, keywords, etc., all the other things you could have. And LinkedIn will come up with some formulas for you. For one example, although we see this a lot, right? I help X do Y. So I help VPs in tech navigate career crossroads to become C-suite leaders. So we've got that piece of who do you work with? C-suite leaders, right? In tech, and what are you helping them do? And then you can keep working it deeper and deeper. So what, right? So what? What is the goal that they achieve? What is the value that they get? And then reformulate it back into something short. So that's an example for one of us, right? Yes, you want to be found for executive coach, but then so what? The industry, the value, the transformation that you provide has to be in there. Now, what about for your clients, right? Everybody wants to stay away from that job title at XYZ, whatever. We don't want that. We know that. However, we do still want some kind of title in there because that is the number one thing recruiters are going to be searching for is the title that matches the jobs that our clients are aiming for. So doing that research, understanding the title, that's essential. Still commodity. How do we take it deeper? Right? Do you help healthcare startups scale and operations? Do you deliver projects on time? Then, we got to work at it. We got to massage it a little bit so that it's differentiating, it's value-based, and it's not just the keywords. Because again, the keywords are that commodity. So how do we help people dig deeper? Now, the examples I've been giving you are from headlines, LinkedIn headlines, because that's easy, right? To think about and to put into an example. But the idea, the strategy goes through your entire profile and your engagement. We don't just want to talk about what we do. We want to talk about how it adds value, how it creates the outcomes that our target audience wants. And so if you're working with people, sometimes this can be the challenges. They don't want to focus in on what makes them different really because it's some internal work, or they don't really have a good clear idea of who their target audience is. And without those two things, you can't do the problem solving piece. You can't talk about what problems you solve if you don't know who your audience is and what their challenges are and how you help them solve it. So there's some deep work in personal branding that has to be done there before we start going out into the world and doing our digital branding. Oh, Jennifer, so good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Oh yeah, always a work in progress. And I think we'll see that and our clients will see that, right? That there are shifts, there's an opportunity to improve, there are ways that we're going to do things differently. And as you get clearer in your messaging, as you get clearer in who your audience is, it will continue to evolve. And that's a good thing. We want that for ourselves and for our clients. So taking a look at, your headline or great thing to do is look at a prospect's headline and really think, does this talk about what they do or the problem that they solve? It doesn't have to have that language, I help X do Y, but does it talk about the problems that they solve? And you're looking for that not just in the headline, but throughout their profile. You should be getting that thread. It's that shift, it's a slight shift that goes beyond the keywords to really make sure they're magnetic, right? They're keying in on the emotional component of what makes what they do so important and what makes it stand out to people. So it's a great thing to look at for your own headline, for your client's headline, and then again, digging deeper into the rest of your profile as well as your engagement. Okay. So when we think about moving from that expert to the authority, one of the other things that we want to do is that our profile and even our resume is not going to be just a static document that talks about what we did. We want it to also talk about the results that we've delivered. We know that. And we want to think about how does that add value for the next employer? Because it's kind of this circle, right? So I've got my story, I've got how it added value in that past experience. Then I've got thinking about how it will add value to my future employer or future client. And then I want to go back and I want to look at that story with that lens and make the tweak so that it's not just an accomplishment anymore, but it's actually a window into the future of what you will get if you hire me. But most people, well, a lot of our clients without our help, right, they're just stuck on maybe the duties, maybe the accomplishment. They really didn't need to even dig into how that added value for the former employer, let alone think about how does that relate to the future that I'm looking at, and making sure that it speaks to that future, not just the past. And those of us, that do this with clients, we see that shift, we see the transition, and oftentimes our client may not even really recognize it because you're still telling the accomplishment story, but the way in which you tell it, the language you use, and the value that you highlight is actually speaking to the future employer's needs, not just the past situation. And what this does is it takes that idea from being a resume or being an accomplishment to actually being a resource, right? A window into the future, an idea, perhaps even, just reading our stuff. Do people get ideas of how they could solve that problem? Now, if they think they could solve it without us, there's not much we can do about that. We're not doing us any favors by hoarding all of the resources. However, we want to make the case of why we can do it because we've done it in the past and we've delivered the results already. That's why they would hire us to help them do it, right? Yes, you could do your own taxes, but you're going to go and get someone to help you that's done it faster, make sure they get the best outcomes, whatever, right? That's a very US example. I know some of you are in Canada where that's not a thing, but you could think about it in every way, right? Yes, you could clean your own windows, but are you going to get the best results? How fast? Is it worth your time? All of those things. So it's not just about, yes, our employer or our client could get this by themselves. We're showing them through that window into the value, how we can do it in a way that saves them money, saves them time, all of those things that we all want when we hire someone to help us with something. So our action is to think about how can you transition your stories, right? I'll be a little selfish for a minute, right? How can you transition your stories from just talking about what you've done to being that window into the value that you'll offer your future client or employer as in the future? Or if you're working with students on a college campus, same thing, right? You might be talking about programs that you do, but how can you help the students see it will add value for them if they come and spend the time and energy to participate? Because we're all selling, whether you're on a university campus or you're in your own business, right? We're all selling our value. We're selling that someone could come and take our programs and spend the time and energy, your money, to do that. And you do that by sharing that with them in the lens of their future, not just in the past. So as you think about this, I know you all do this, right? We ask our client these questions. We're thinking about what are some of the ways that they add value? What are some of the ways that they make money, save money? If you've got other ideas, other things you ask clients, go ahead and drop those in the chat. It's always helpful for the rest of us to just see all of that. What are all of the benefits that we can offer? All right. So that was the second one. going from that resume to a resource where we're showing how we can add value in the future. So the next piece, and this is where we want our clients and us to start attracting opportunities instead of having to apply for all of them, is to go from that expert or maybe expert for hire, expert, job seeker, to an industry leader. And this is where we come kind of off of our profile and we start talking about engagement. Because if you want to be seen as an industry leader, if your clients want to be seen as an industry leader, thought leader, whatever words you want to use, if they want to get hired without having to apply, if they want to be at the top of the list when someone's, making a conversation, they have to be engaged in the conversation, in their community. So it's not just who do I know, it's who knows me. And what do they remember about me? A few weeks ago, we talked about, memorability and this idea that when we're clear and specific with our stories and consistent across the skills that we share and the stories that we tell, that we become memorable. This, in this space, is all about not just being memorable, but being memorable by the right people. So if we can connect to their community and we can show up as someone that brings generosity and sharing and ideas and good data or whatever it is that is relevant in that community, that's how you build that industry leader persona. And this doesn't have to be on digital. I think digital is an easy way to make it happen, and it's accessible to most people, not everyone, but most people. When you think about this piece, and I love Barb, yeah, what do you want to be known for? That's that first step we were talking about. And then now, who needs to know you? And so when we go into that piece of it, it's not just about the profile and having that expertise there, even having the great, statements that do speak to future value. It's getting engaged in the community, getting seen so that we are a resource and a leader. Digital gives us an opportunity to do that, right? We can get involved in the Slack channel in the community or the Discord channel or, LinkedIn conversations, LinkedIn groups, whatever it is. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of platforms we could choose, but the activity is the same. I'm engaging in my community. I'm answering questions. I'm asking questions. I'm sharing resources. I'm careful not to make it about me, right? Oh, look at my stuff. This is particularly important if we're a small business owner. We're always sharing our own articles, our own courses, our own stuff. Pay me for things, right? That it doesn't land the same. You don't show up as a leader. You show up as a marketer, which at times, yes, but up to serve. We're showing up to provide value. And I know in the marketing space right now, there's talk about, don't add value, don't focus on that. Then everybody just takes your stuff and walk away. But there's a difference between being seen as an industry leader and being out there and just trying to give value to see if it will get you business. So I'm providing data. I'm providing thoughtful questions. I'm providing my insights on things. I'm not giving you all my programs. I'm not giving you all of my stuff for free. I'm just showing up and telling you what I know and the resources I can share. And automatically you start to see, and I've had people say this to me personally, like I was watching your live streams and I couldn't imagine what I would actually get in the course, seeing what you do in your live streams, right? And that's the energy that we want to give off, that we want our clients to give off. And when I'm talking to leaders right now in all different types of industries who are trying to build their thought leadership on LinkedIn, that's what we talk about. It doesn't have to be your stuff. And at first, it's not even about content creation at all. It's more about comments and engaging and sharing and asking questions and getting known. And then you might start to post some content, but it still doesn't have to be yours, right? You've got an article from a paper you read, and probably not a hard copy paper, but maybe an industry journal or a newsletter or something. And you're sharing that, but you're responding with your thought leadership. How has that shown up for you in the past? How do you know that to be true? Or how do you know that this has got a gap in it? When you bring your experience and your expertise to that conversation on a regular basis with that consistent thread of what you want to be known for, that's when you start to build that authority. And we're not talking about trying to be an influencer. It's different. I'm not trying to have a million likes and thousands of followers. I am trying to connect with a specific community who needs to know me and become an authority in that community. That's what we're trying to do. And when we do it well, it's that opportunity to kind of get a win-win. You're building your visibility, you're building your authority, but you're also building those relationships and connections that are what we need to succeed and to attract opportunities, right? Nobody's going to come looking for you to do something if they don't even know you exist. That's the visibility piece. They're not going to come looking for you if they don't think you know what it is you're supposed to know, right? That's that credibility piece. And then they're not going to come ask you for it if they don't like you. That's that connection, relationship piece. And we can help our clients achieve that. We can help ourselves achieve it through digital tools, as well as partnering it with maybe in person or other ways that we're building those relationships. So as you think about your clients or your community, whether you're in university or in your own business, what are some of those challenges that they have? And how can you build authority to show them that you're a resource for that type of problem? We got to know our client, got to know ourselves. What do we want to be known for? Who needs to know us? And then start to connect the dots through the way that we engage and build community. So it's not about posting a certain amount of times a week. It's not even about commenting a certain amount of times a week. It's about getting engaged in those conversations that get you the conversations you want to have, right? Get you into those discussions that you want to have. Yes, I love that. How much time, resources, how did you improve it? Love that. Yeah, all those questions that we ask our clients, we also want to think about if we're asking them for ourselves. So are we giving ourselves the same opportunities we're creating for clients? I know most of us are givers in our field. We're trying to help our clients, but maybe today, maybe tomorrow, just taking a little bit of time and thinking through those questions for yourself. And how are you building that for yourself? We know that September is typically a busy time in our business. I'm wishing all of you a very busy September. Don't lose what we might call like our minimal viable marketing, right? So if you are busy this September, yes, let's do that. What do you need to do minimally to maintain your visibility in these communities that help you get the opportunities you want to have? And how can you make sure you're doing that on a regular basis, even if it's a little bit less volume than it typically is when you're not as busy? So wishing you all a very busy September. I'll remind you that tomorrow we have our free open call if you want to join us for that on digital branding trends. We'd love to see you there tomorrow. ctlrwalogistics.com, and that's a QARSVP. And then I'll also remind you that coming up here, which I saw Barb. Thank you for joining us, Barb. But we also have our digital branding. our digital branding class coming up starting on the 17th, which is a chance to dive into this for yourself and also get the tools for your clients. What do you want to be known for? Who needs to know you? And how do you use these digital tools to get that visibility, that authority that you need to achieve your goals? And then, of course, you've got the process to help your clients do the same. So if you're interested in that, you have questions about that, let me know, especially if you can't join us tomorrow for the question and answer session. So as you're thinking about this today, you want to go out and you want to shift from what you can do to the problems you can solve. You want to think about your profile and even your resume, or if you've got a website for your business, not as a resume, this is all the things that I've done, but as a resource where you're shifting those stories from the accomplishments that you've had in the past to a window into the value you can offer the people who hire you in the future. And then if you want to go from expert to authority, you got to get out that profile and you got to start engaging on the platforms where the people who need to know you are active. Because it's not just about getting found. It's about going out there and engaging in the conversations that allow you to get known for what you want to be known for, and building that authority by being a resource and not just expecting our profile to do it for us. So I hope that gives you some motivation for today. Don't forget to hit the bell so that you get notified when we go live on these Trend Tuesdays. And we actually have our Friday series this Friday as well, Friday AI in Career Services. So look forward to that as well over on my personal profile, but on the CTL YouTube and Facebook. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.